for watching Onyx Pages. I am back. I have filmed 3 videos this weekend and I feel like a boss. So this video is my 7 cowrie shell review of Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I read this book for Latinx, the Latinx-a-thon, and for Latin Heritage Month, and I'm really glad I did. I've read one other book by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and that is Signal to Noise, and I really loved that book, and I read it because I watched a review of that book on Perpetual Pages channel, and Adriana just totally sold me on it. So I followed their advice and I read it and I loved it. So yes. What to say about Gods of Jade and Shadow? So I guess it has been described as a road trip through the Mayan underworld, which I think is a really interesting description of it, and I think it's pretty apt actually. It is a fantasy drawing from ancient Mayan culture. It tells the story of Cassiopeia. Now Cassiopeia is a girl who, because her father passed away, she and her mom had to move in with her grandfather and her aunt and her mean cousin in this beautiful home where she and her mom are effectively servants for this family. She basically serves her grandfather. And she hates the fact that she has to do this, but she experiences like just so much downpression in that space because she's bullied by her cousin. She is mistreated by her family, especially her cousin and her grandfather. And she really doesn't have a lot of options as to how she can deal with that. Right? So we meet her at the beginning of the story just really struggling and hating that aspect of her life and really feeling like her mother isn't like fighting back or supporting her. She basically is the maid of her own family members. So one day she is cleaning up her grandfather's home and his room, and she finds this chest, and then she opens this chest, and then all ish hits the fan because she's effectively opened a box that contained the bones of a Mayan death god called Hunkame, and his bones were put in there for reasons that would be a spoiler for me to tell you, but she basically like unlocks him, and she, as a result of, there's lots of ducks here, she, as a result of unlocking him, now has to accompany him on this journey so that he can regain his power. So that's the road trip part of it, because they have to go to all of these different places on their journey, and they have to travel together. So traveling together means that Cassiopeia has to decide whether or not she wants to leave her family. She has to figure out what the terms of their engagement are. She has to figure out her boundaries. There's that gorgeous duck again. Like, it's really pretty. She has to figure out her boundaries. She's also super young. So she's, kind of coming of age as she travels with this maybe centuries old male god. And through this journey, she learns a lot about herself, her strength, her desires for something different. She chooses freedom because just by leaving her family and going off with this god, she's definitely taking a life path that's very different from what was set out for her by her family. So it's just this really interesting story. There are also some really cute references to Disney princesses. So she quips about Rapunzel, and there are obvious references to Cinderella because, like Cinderella, Cassiopeia has to work as a servant for her family members. But I think that that's sort of where the similarity between her story and the Cinderella story kind of depart, because she's not Cinderella. She is so much cooler, and there's so much in that story. Okay, so while I read the story, I also kept my little sheet where I wrote down the 7 cowrie shell rating system because I wanted to make sure that I captured all the points that I wanted to share with you. So get your tea, get comfortable, because this might be a long video. I really, really enjoyed this story. In terms of world building, this was a landscape that I just wasn't really familiar with, because I don't know a lot about Mayan history. I don't know a lot about Mexico. I don't know a lot about, elements of magical realism and fantasy through the literary histories of Latinx folks. So this was just aesthetically new for me. The myths were new to me. The relationships were new to me. So it was just a whole new to me world. And I think it was done really, really, really well. I expected master world building from Silvia Moreno-Garcia, because in Signal to Noise, her world building was really amazing. So I didn't really expect anything less. So she's traveling with Hunkame through this middle space, right? This middle world. So you've got the world of the underworld, and you've got sort of world on top, and then there's the world where humans reside. And so she's moving around in that space with him, and has all of these interactions with, like, demons and ghosts and all this kind of creepy stuff, and she really takes it in stride. Like, it's not that she's infallible or she's not afraid. She's absolutely terrified as she goes through this journey, but she really has this, we see this world through her eyes, right? We see her starting to encounter this other world that she learned about only through folk tales. I believe that she was raised Catholic, and which is something I guess I could appreciate, but she now has to deal with this other, older, more ancient world that coexists with her own. And so seeing that world unfold through her eyes was really, really cool. And it made it accessible for me, because it's not like she sort of expected these folks to show up. She was also surprised, just like I was surprised. So it made the world building really accessible. And I like when authors do that. The middle world is where she was. Silvia Moreno-Garcia, I'm not sure if her last name is Garcia or Moreno-Garcia, but her writing is super atmospheric, and so throughout the novel we definitely hear her describing, like, wind and nightfall and stars and oceans and textures, and so it was really a beautifully immersive experience. I particularly liked her description of the underworld, because growing up Catholic, like, you don't really hear a lot about darkness or dark worlds or anything like that. All you hear is, like, it's hell and it's bad and you don't want to go there. But here, like, the underworld is actually a place with, cities and people and roads and magic and mystery around every turn. So I thought it was really cool to really sort of encounter that through her eyes. So I loved her world building. For world building, I would give a complete cowrie shell for world building. Okay. For characters, we really encounter this story through mainly 2 different perspectives. One, the main perspective is Cassiopeia, who's our protagonist, and then we've got our antagonist. We've got Hunkame, and we see the world through his eyes. We see his relationship with Cassiopeia through his eyes. We see his own journey definitely through his eyes. And what I really appreciated about him, and I'm thinking about this mostly because I just watched Jesse's review of some book with a snake on the front, Serpents of Something and Something. And they were talking about how we need villains to have character and density and complexity, because villains serve a purpose, right? And one of the purposes of the villain character is that good villains are in some ways kind of relatable or kind of likable, and it helps us sort of resolve the complexities and nuances of our own selves. And I thought that was a really insightful point. And as I think about Hunkame as a villain, he kind of began, at least for me, began as a villain, and then at the end of the story, he felt like less of that. To me, he felt like more of an ally, and I think like really, and he moved from being, for me, from a villain to an ally, really slowly and subtly and seamlessly, in a way that felt believable to me. So I really love how his character changed throughout the story, how he literally became more human and then had to make a choice about that. And I really enjoyed how throughout the whole story we see Cassiopeia become stronger, more confident in her decision making, more alert and aware, more powerful, and she develops and understands her own sort of sense of womanhood and prowess and integrity, you know. So I really enjoyed that. Also, Silvia Moreno-Garcia describes this protagonist as a feminist protagonist, and I think I get it. This is a story where the main character is a young girl of color, and she's forced to think of herself as less than, just in the most horrible ways, and she just refuses to. She's strong, she's courageous, she takes risks, she's not afraid of her own vulnerability, she explores things, she explores her own identity as a woman, and I enjoyed being able to see that character, because it really was, it is a response to, consciously or unconsciously, a response to all the Disney princesses of the past, who are just like perpetual victims, and she's certainly not that. She also is the most disempowered in the story, and here we see the most disempowered in the story, a girl who's under the control of the adults in her life, who is basically an indentured servant to her own family members, becoming the hero in so many powerful ways. So and not doing that, not having to oppress others in the process. That's incredible, when you get to win without making others lose, you know? And as a character in her teen years, her awareness of that, she even says that during the story, and I just think it was really empowering for me. So I loved her rebellion, I love her wisdom, I love her naivete. I just really loved it. I love the relationship between her and Hunkame. Some of it creeped me out a little bit, but I got over that and really was able to just appreciate how one might imagine a girl and a god traveling through time and space together might look like. So I give a full cowrie shell for characters. So for points of view, the point of view that I really wanted to hear from the most in this, and my lighting's coming out. The point of view that I wanted to hear the most from this was Cassiopeia. That's who I cared about the most, and that's who I got to learn from the most. So I gave a full cowrie shell for that. And from a feminist perspective, an intersectional feminist perspective, I think that this story offered us a lot of commentary on how girls can engage with men, in particular, men who are their elders, men who are superior to them within like the pecking order of their family structures, men who are driving them places, men who are trying to control them. Like there were just so many. Okay, here are these awesome ducks again. There were so many despicable men that she had to figure out how to live with, and she did. Okay, hold on. Oh, these ducks are so cute. I hope you'll be able to see their coloring. Oh, there's one. Hold on. Do you see it? There it is. There it is. See? Right there. The colors. Ooh, hi friend. Whoa. There's like a duckopolis. A duckopolis? Okay, focus. Whoops. Lots of ducks. Isn't that just beautiful? Oh, there's one that's coming close. I feel like she knows that I really... Oh, there we go. That's a nice shot of the duck. Here, ducky, ducky. Okay. Ooh. Wow. They're making duck noises. Okay. So, yes. Points of view. Yes. So what I wrote down here was that Cassiopeia really refuses to be a cliche. She refuses to be a trope, and I just love it. And she's just so self-aware, right, of that. And I really appreciated that. Relevance. So, did I say? Oh, this review is really scrambled. So a full cowrie shell for points of view. Now, in terms of relevance, I think that one of the questions that this story answered that I really liked is, how can young girls deal with fragile masculinity? And I feel like that's a really important question. This is not a YA novel, but it is relevant to, I think, at least, teenage girls or young adult girls. And Cassiopeia is not yet a woman. She's a girl becoming a woman. And she constantly says throughout the novel, she's like, oh, I'm crying like a girl, or like, I'm handling this like a girl. And she's just constantly dealing with, what does it mean to be a girl? And she's doing that mostly in relation to men who are trying to control her and trying to define her destiny. And so I think the question asked by this novel is, what other models of girlhood can be offered is a really important one and a really relevant one. So I gave a full cowrie shell for relevance. Some of the images of womanhood that are explored is woman as servant, woman as sacrifice, woman as horror, woman as a partner, woman as a dutiful daughter. Just, she has so many opportunities to explore different ways to empower herself. And I think that this is kind of like an anti-fairy tale in ways, but it also just gives her so many choices. There's so many options for her. And at the end of the story, she has a choice to make, and I really love the choice that she does eventually make. Dog. All right. So full cowrie shell for relevance. Then we've got options. So this is a spoiler. For those of you who don't like spoilers, I gave a full cowrie shell for options, and you can just like skip this section and I'll go like this when the spoiler's over. Okay. All right. So in terms of options, she has a couple of options. She can, when she opened the box of bones and Hun Kame like appeared before her, he basically told her that she had to stay with him so that, and to help him gather the different parts of him that had been cut off, literally, so that he could become full again and return to the underworld, Xibalba, where he, can be like king of the underworld again, because his brother stole the throne from him effectively. And so she has choices, right? She obviously chooses to go off with him, but she can choose to, she had the choice to sacrifice herself, because in order for him to become whole, she would have to basically die. So she could do that, or she could just not do that, like go with him, help him get all the pieces of himself together, and then not die. And she chose to sacrifice herself, but then she ends up coming back to life because he is the god of death, so he can really do that. And he just gives her freedom, right? She also has a choice to run away with him in his human form, and they can be romantic together. And she's like, no, that's not why I'm here. That's not why you're here. I don't know that I want that. So she had all of these options, and the option that she chose, which was to keep her promise to him, but also keep her promise to herself and explore the world, get in a car and just drive and learn to drive and be her own woman. Like the option that she chose was literally the most liberating option ever. And I loved it. She wasn't dragged down by sentimentality or nostalgia over the family that she's no longer a part of, whatever. She's like, I'm out. Thanks. Good road trip. More of that, please. So a full Carrie shell for options. Also, for otherworldly elements, I do have spoilers as well. There was a ton of magic in this story. Like, we're talking killer plants, demons. I wanted to say demonoids, but demons and gods and ghosts and priestesses and priests and like weird travel through dimensions. There's like time loops and time warps and like just wild, dark, interesting magic everywhere. And it was amazing. Even though Cassiopeia is not, doesn't sort of see herself as magical, I would think that she was a bit of a seer, and she had these amazing qualities, like the ability to discern, to identify when somebody might be lying or somebody might be trying to manipulate her. Just really amazing. And this idea that, even when you are oppressed, you can still develop like survival skills that border on superpowers or actually superpowers, was just a really interesting concept that was played out really well in the story. So full Carrie shell for that. And then for overall reading experience, I loved it. Full Carrie shell. So it was a page turner. It was really great. Also, Life is a Page Turner is India has a great channel, as I say, page turner, so you should like go to her channel and subscribe to her. But just like, it was just fun. I read it really super quickly. I annotated it all over the place. I love Silvia Moreno-Garcia's writing. The myth and story, just everything was beautifully done. I really enjoyed it. It was smart literature. It was necessary, timely, textured. The pace was on. The characters were rich. It was funny, even while it was scary. Like, being able to do funny and scary together was really cool. So anyway, okay. You can go back now. This is a 7 Carrie shell read. Yes. So I do recommend Gods of Jade and Shadow over here. I recommend this for people who are interested in fantasy that's like based on like fabulous fantasy and folklore and mythical fantasy. Those who want to learn more about Mexican culture, in particular Mayan culture, because there's a lot of, I believe she has I want to say she has a glossary in the back. I thought she did. Yeah, she does have a glossary, and she actually explains how some of the language that she's used might not necessarily be accurate, because there are a lot of different ways to spell ancient words. So she's got a glossary, so there's some education here. It's just a really wonderful, amazing story that I completely enjoyed. So I think you should read this. That's all I got. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, because that means a lot to me. It's a signal that you like it, and I like your signals, so we can communicate. If you are not subscribed to this channel, but you like the content and you'd like to demonstrate to me that you would like to see more of it, then please subscribe, of course. And if you have read Gods of Jade and Shadow and you'd like to chat about it, what's that? Okay, that's not a snake. Good. You want to chat about it? Definitely leave a comment in the description area and I will communicate with you there. Thanks once again for watching Onyx Pages, and I hope that you have a wonderful day wherever you are, doing whatever you're doing with whoever you are doing with. See you later. Ducks. The ducks are gone.